So welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. Today, joining me, I have Donny Walford, a trailblazer in Australian business and the founder of Behind Closed Doors and Bottom Line. And she has decades of experience in executive roles, boardrooms, mentoring, you name it. And she's not only dedicated to her career to driving transformational change, but also empowering women to step into leadership roles. Recognised as one of South Australia's most influential people, her work has shaped industries, inspired leaders, and is creating a very long-lasting impact. Thanks for coming on, Donny.
It's my pleasure. It's been a long time coming, Daniel.
It has been. We've been trying to have you on for a while. Obviously, there's been some personal stuff that we won't go into today. I'd like to start off the podcast always around sort of understanding who the person is sitting in front of me. So what do we need to know about Donny's earliest context? Like, who are you? Where did you come from?
So do you want me to go back before work?
Before.
Okay, so I grew up a tomboy.
A tomboy?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and I was great at footy and cricket.
Yeah.
And I played all my growing up years until I went into secondary schooling, and I was told off by the teachers to tell me that I wasn't allowed to play footy or cricket with the boys. And that's when it was a real shame, and I grew up in the wrong era because I should have been in this era where we've got the AFLW. Right?
And it's coming out great. I grew up playing with Erin Phillips, actually.
Oh my God,
yeah,
she's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing. So she played for West Lakes, and I played for Henley Sharks. We were rivals, and she was dominating the league.
I bet she was
back then. But at 13, she wasn't allowed to play any further. There was no girl competition, and that's why she took up basketball, which she obviously had
and then she was amazing at that as well.
Great career.
I'd say she'd be amazing at anything she tried.
She's an athlete, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a shame.
Yeah, that was a shame. But anyway, high school wasn't for me. I mean, I was good at other sports, so I played other sport, but it was my love was footy. So anyway, then I entered the workforce in way too many years ago in Savings Bank of South Australia, which became the State Bank, which became Bank SA. And I was there for all those iterations. So I had a 20-year career, which I broke around the 4-year mark and lived in the UK for 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. Very good.
And then when I returned, it was the time that the bank had lost a lot of people from 5 years to 10 years, mainly men, who had gone on to different careers. And they were ringing, so personnel department at the time, now people and culture, were ringing all of the males to ask them to come back because they had this huge gap of skills. And I heard about it, and so I rang up the head of retail banking and said, you can't discriminate between males and females. You should be ringing the females to come back as well. Mm-hmm. And he said, come in for an interview, and I did, and I started back in banking. So it was 20 years all up.
Yeah, wow. There you go.
And then...
Before we go on to next,
yes,
I want to keep the theme of the early years before we dive into the rest of your career. We will get a chance to go through your career.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in, when you said tomboy. I haven't got this out of my head. So I'm a tomboy. So what shaped that? Was it your upbringing from your parents? Like, tell us a little bit about your parents. What philosophies did they...
Okay, so my mother drove a car. My father didn't.
Mm-hmm.
My mother built us a pool table at woodwork classes. My father never did any building.
Yeah.
So I grew up thinking males and females did whatever they did.
Yeah.
It wasn't a role for females to do this and a role for males to do
absolutely.
that. So Mum was, I guess, the role model on women can do anything.
So true equality, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then my brother was only a year older than me, and I used to play. And my sister was 3 years younger, so I used to play with my brother and his friends.
Yeah.
Not
sport would be the.
So sport was the thing, and I remember being 8 years old, and my brother and the next door neighbour, who was the same age, a male. They tried to get away from me. They climbed a ladder to get up on this roof, and I climbed the ladder, and as I got up, they climbed the ladder down as fast as they could, and I thought, I'll jump.
Oh, no.
So I jumped off this roof, and as I'm coming down, I'm thinking, I have no idea how I'm going to land.
Uh-oh.
And I landed like stiff, straight.
Oh.
And then I just stood there shaking for I don't know how long, and then thought, I can't tell Mum and Dad, they'll kill me for jumping off the roof. And then when I was 38,
Did you
well, when I was 38, I had a new chiro, and he said, "Oh, is this you, Walford?" And I thought he was having a go at my name, and I said yes, and he said, "When did you fracture your neck?"
Oh.
And I said, "Oh, I haven't." And he said, "Oh, yes, you have. And here's the old fracture, and here's all the spurs that are coming off of it, blah, blah, blah." It would have happened probably, 25, 30 years ago. And then I went, "Would this have done it?" And I told him what I just told you. And he said, "Yep, that would have done it." So could you imagine that if I had gone and said, "Oh, there's something seriously wrong here," I wouldn't have been put in cotton wool. I wouldn't have been playing sport. I did karate. I did netball. I did squash. I played footy.
Did you ever have pains in your neck?
I had pain
everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyone who plays sport has pain everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
But wow.
I know.
Did it hurt at the time? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like, I'm not telling anyone about this.
No. No, well, you
That fear
shouldn't be
of,
climbing off,
no, you
jumping
shouldn't
off a roof, right?
You could blame your brother though.
Well, no, I didn't blame anyone. I just thought I'd be smart beating them down.
So early on, was there signs? I mean, obviously, growing up in a world where there was no sort of gender in your household.
Well, in
so
my
to
primary
speak.
school, I went to a Catholic primary school, and the boys and the girls, there was no distinction. We played with them. We played in the yard with them. We did sport against them.
Yeah.
Like there
Was that here locally in South Australia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was no distinction. It was only when I got into secondary schooling that it was girls do this and boys do that. And like your first 12, 13 years of life where you were brought up, like there was no distinction.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there was.
Did you find yourself getting like righteous about it or upset about it or?
No, not at all. I just didn't fit. And so I went, the 5 years of secondary schooling, I just didn't fit at all.
Because you were getting put into
Well, you're in a box, and
box.
I don't belong in boxes.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does. So, okay, so the writing was on the wall that you were clearly slightly a different thinker of the time as a younger child. You were thinking differently. You're like, why am I being treated this way?
Why would you treat anyone differently? So it was more. I guess in some ways that's where I started my rebellious behaviour because I was a strict, disciplined, stay by the rules. Brought up as a Catholic as well, and brainwashed into that sort of religion. But then you hit secondary schooling and it wasn't a Catholic school, so it was the first time I'd ever heard the F word. It was the first time I saw rebellious behaviour, and I guess I was rebelling against a system that didn't treat males and females equally.
So rebelling in what way?
I guess I didn't follow the rules of the
conventional
rules.
Bit naughty.
But I still, no, I was never naughty. I think the way I rebelled was I just shut down.
Okay.
Yeah, I shut down for the whole 5 years.
Disconnected.
Yeah, that's a good word. That's what I did.
So let's talk about how does that transition? So obviously you go off into the banking world, go overseas, experience life, come back to Australia. What happens from there?
Rejoined the bank, got married. I married the man that I went overseas with, who was English, and then when the new managing director of the new state bank, the merger of the old state bank, which was a regional bank, and the savings bank to become the state bank, the managing director, which was Tim Marcus Clark, asked, where are all the women and where are all the young people in management? Because these were the days where women, just before I joined the bank, women had to resign when they got married. So there are a few women who never told the bank they got married, so they didn't have to resign. But
Is that real?
but when you got pregnant,
I can see the look on Gav's face.
when you got pregnant, you had to resign, and there was little way of not showing that you were pregnant. So
What in the world?
That was in the late 70s.
Is this just banking or is this?
No, it was any government department or semi-government. So the savings bank, state bank, was classed as like a statutory authority. So your SA Waters, your South Australian Power Networks, which used to be ETSA and EWS, all of those statutories, if women got married, they had to leave. And then when they changed that rule, it was when you got pregnant, you had to leave. You had to resign, not leave. Resign.
What was the...
Oh, who knows? Who knows? That's why there's not so many women in leadership roles in those sorts of organisations. It's weird, isn't it?
Wow.
Yep.
Do you know when you look back at on social media and you see some of the old newspaper articles?
Yes.
That's what that reminds me of.
Yes.
You just go, what?
Yeah.
This is ludicrous.
Yeah, definitely. But they were the days that you only got promoted by years of service. So you didn't have to have any capability, any skills, whatever. You got promoted on years of service. And the only way you could jump a level was if you had a degree and you could jump 1 year. That's it. So there were only men in management. So there were 3,500 employees and not one female manager. So that's why he said, where are all the women and where are all the young people?
So designed by men to empower more men is what this was.
Yeah, but I mean, these are archaic ways
ridiculous.
of getting promoted as well. So anyway, the good thing out of that was that the HR area had to develop a fast-tracking program to bring graduates. We never used to bring graduates in from university. So bringing graduates, all different disciplines, as well as see who were in the retail network that they could put on this fast-tracking program. It was 2 years, and I was nominated by my regional manager to go onto the program, and that was the change of my career, because I got 6 promotions in 2 years, and one of the stories that Gab will also go, what the... my first manager role, now this is after many years of never being promoted and being held back, but doing the job of everybody else, like I could do anyone's job, because I used to get bored, get my job done within 2 hours and then do everyone else's job, just to stimulate or keep myself stimulated. And so the first promotion that I was encouraged to go for was the manager of a call centre, and there were no call centres in the state. We were the biggest at the time, and just set up, and it was a level 6, and your career in management starts at level 4. So level 4, level 5, no, don't go for that. Go for 6, and I got the job, and then men in the bank appealed against me getting the job, even men who didn't even apply for it. And I thought the bank would tell them to,
get stuffed.
Get lost. And the bank didn't. And the bank allowed the appeal to go ahead. So I had to reapply for the job I already got. And not only reapply for it in the bank, it went out to a national headhunter for anyone in Australia to go for the role. And I won it again. And against a national.
Well done.
And it was the first time they've ever gone national for a job.
Yeah, wow.
That was.
Did you give them the up yours?
Well, I gave them the up yours by getting it again.
Yeah.
And then.
But how does that sit with you at that time?
My whole mantra was just prove yourself, prove yourself, prove yourself. And that, and then there came a time that you thought, I don't have to prove myself to anyone anymore, But that was how I used to. Don't let the bastards beat you, and prove yourself. So 1 year in that role, I was asked to go for another promotion, which was to run one of the largest retail branches, which was Norwood. And 1 week after being in that role, the state bank collapsed. And I received a phone call from the head of Australian banking to come in on the Sunday morning before it was all announced, and we had to ring every one of those 3,500 employees. So I brought all my old team from the network and anyone I knew to come in and man phones, and we, by the 6 p.m. that night, we'd rung or left messages for every one of those to say, tomorrow expect a run on funds. So that was probably the benchmark of what's the worst thing that could ever happen or has happened in your career to that date, was that State Bank collapse, because the next day I'm back in Nord branch and every single Italian and Greek person who had money with the bank was lined up. And we had so many runs of the armour guard to bring in cash because we lost so much money. It wasn't funny.
What was the reason?
And they all went to Combank.
For those
because they were scared that the collapse of the bank and the collapse of the state meant that they were going to lose their money. So they wanted to take their money out and put it in a bank they thought would be safer, and that was Combank.
And that was the rise of Combank.
But it was like people hated us for about 2 years, and you could well imagine the media at that time was like, you know, this is going to be your kids and your kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids paying this debt off. You know, we lost $4.2 billion in the end.
Yeah, wow.
That's no mean feat. We didn't even know what $1 billion was, you know, let alone 4.2. Anyway, it was a tough time, but it was also a career turning for me, because the bank, we separated the bad assets, called it the bad bank and the good bank, and the good bank was now you have to go out and rebuild the bank, and instead of you coming on your hands and knees pleading for a loan, we came to you as a customer, potential customer, please stay with us, or please come and take out a home loan with us. Any sort of loan, just to rebuild the business. And that's when they wanted salespeople, they wanted transformational people, whatever. And I ended up running this major transformation program where I wanted to take every piece of paper off a desk, and I called it platform banking at the time. And
What year was this?
This was the end of the 80s. 91 was the collapse.
No paper in the 80s?
No, yeah, we were the only bank.
You were...
I put I had a formula, so it was either could we eliminate it, so if we didn't need to do this, let's eliminate it. The next was if we couldn't eliminate it, could we simplify the processes? And as soon as we simplified the processes, we stuck it online. And then it was educating, and I started with 5 branches who wanted to pilot all the change. And then all the friends were saying, well, can you come into our branch and do it to us? And, yeah, the whole bank went on to personal computers, and no other bank had that.
Well done.
It was amazing.
That's
it was
like
amazing.
Trailblazing at its finest.
Yeah, it was. And I loved it. And it was just...
How difficult was that change? How in a time where, you know, computers weren't prominent...
No.
How difficult was that? And getting
the most difficult was trying to get the branch managers to use computers instead of writing things on paper.
Like it's a massive change.
So it was education. I had a lot of champions around the bank who younger people who were just thank God we've got this change. And I'd say, look, if you don't like the change, we can bring it back in 3 months' time.
Yeah, okay.
It's fine. And they never wanted it back, obviously. But their greatest fear overall was it would do them out of a job. And what we were trying to do was put you more in front of a customer, to spend more time with the customer, the more time in the back office doing the administration side of banking. And it was fantastic. And, so that was I think that's how I got noticed, because I had to present in front of board. I was in my early 30s. I had to present in front of board. I had to present in front of executive. I had a steering committee that was headed up by all of the major chiefs in the bank. So I got great exposure, and nothing was off limits at all.
Brilliant.
It was brilliant.
Were you dealing with the battles still then, like, you know, the naysayers?
For my whole life.
Yeah.
And as a woman, the only way you can get promoted is by sleeping your way to the top. I don't know if you know that, but that still happens today, unfortunately. But I remember this guy...
Obviously tongue-in-cheek.
I remember this guy walking across the bank with me. His name was Chook. I don't know what his real name was, but we called him Chook.
Yeah,
and he said, Donny, if all the rumours are true and you've slept with as many men as you've rumoured to sleep with, I want your autograph. And I thought, oh, finally I've got someone who, so
Wowee.
and that's when you just thought, lose all the naysayers and when they say about you'll really understand who your friends are. Like all the people that I grew up in the bank with that I thought would be supporters of mine were the worst naysayers.
How did you manage the internal battle when you've got people saying that?
Look, you can't focus on that. It would destroy you. So I just focused on proving myself, achieving.
So you had no...
There was nothing like behind closed doors. There was no mentoring, no coaching. The only coaching you got was when you were told you were doing something wrong.
But for a young and up and coming leader, like that's hard to deal with. Like I don't, me personally, I don't like when someone's angry at me, let alone when people are talking shit about me in the back. Like that. How did you compartmentalize that?
Look, I've always, the way that I've always dealt with everything in life is by exercise. That's my outlet. But I also deal with it with humour. And I remember one of my when I was promoted into senior management, and I had one woman manager and 12 males, so 13 branch managers. And not long after I took over the regional job, this female, her husband died, and I spent months sitting with her at night to make sure she was okay, keeping the friendship at bay. We became friends after we both left the bank, but I wanted to make sure she was okay because she was early 40s, I think, or late 30s when she lost her husband. Anyway, the rumour then went around that we were lesbians. Like, so no longer I'm sleeping my way to the top with males. I'm a lesbian now. Anyway, I thought, how am I going to tell this woman, like, who's lost her husband, that this is the rumour that's going around about us? And so I thought I just have to tell her straight. So I went to her branch and I said, look, I just need to tell you that this is the rumour that's going around about us. And she said, I don't even know where Lesbia is. And I thought, you know what, that's the way you have to deal with all of these idiots, right? Is just with humour.
Oh my goodness.
And so when you say, so how do you deal with it? It's like, don't make their problem my problem. And when it becomes my problem, then I will deal with it.
Yeah, but it's almost like an attack on your integrity, though, isn't it?
And that is the one thing that is my one true value. You attack my integrity, and this will end in tears, but I won't be the one crying.
Yeah, and I think it
toughens you up, though, Daniel.
Yeah.
I mean, business is a tough business, and being, the pointy end of senior management, executive, CEO, board roles, you've got to be tough. It's a tough world. And it helped build my resilience. And I just wouldn't let the bastards beat me. It was my total mantra. And I teach women this today. You have to have a mantra that helps you cope, but also have, coaches and mentors and peer groups that you can tap into and feel safe to be open and honest about what you're going through and have strategies and tactics of how to cope. But my coping was always exercise, and it still is today.
What was your mantra at the time?
Don't let the bastards beat you.
Yeah, I love it.
There's a Latin saying, and it's something like, don't let the turkeys get you down, or something like that. And I just used my own words, like, don't let the bastards beat you. And I still have that mantra today.
Who are the bastards now, these days?
Bastards don't have to just be men, by the way.
No.
Yeah. I don't have the issues I used to have.
So the mantra is like, so who are you fighting against when you say that now? If that's still your mantra today?
Maybe some board director.
We won't go into that. So, I mean, what's really interesting is that, again, it seemed as if there was an attack on your integrity in regards to those rumours that were swirling. You've been able to compartmentalise, manage it in a way of I don't want to let these bastards get me down. But then there's an element of feeling like you're enough. if that makes sense. Like there's now the imposter syndrome that might sneak in.
I've never had that.
As a leader.
My mum could do anything. I could do anything.
Yeah.
So I've never. When women say about imposter syndrome and they've achieved so much, and I just don't understand when you can prove what you've done to yourself, and you know what all your achievements are. How on earth can the imposter syndrome be there? But it is, and in women that would surprise you if I told you some of them. But I've just never had that issue. I've always backed myself. So
what's your advice for those who do suffer from it though? Because it is there.
You have to. It's a mindset thing. So you have to just reaffirm constantly on the things you can do. Don't worry about what you can't do. I mean, there's plenty of people who can fill the gaps, but just reaffirm. Go over what your achievements are. Reaffirm what you've done well, and don't let that little girl's voice get inside your head. And there's another great quote that says, "Your head is a bad neighbourhood. Don't go there alone." So if and it's impossible to have a negative and a positive thought at exactly the same time. So make sure that if a negative thought comes in, or that imposter syndrome, whatever is happening there, make sure you replace it with 2 or 5 positive thoughts, and it knocks the negative one out.
Yeah.
So
I was taught as a child, I grew up playing a lot of sport as well, so I was taught as a child that there is a difference between what's in your head and what you say to yourself, if it makes sense. So what's in your head is I'm not good enough, but then if you actually just say, no, I'm fucking good enough.
Yeah, correct.
Right? Like it actually
Yeah, that's right. That's that negative positive
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, I was taught there's something about that, because when you're on the sporting field and your body is about to give up because you've got no more energy, and you're like, fucking keep going. Like I can't.
You can keep going.
You do.
Just break through.
You just find that extra.
You do.
And I guess that really comes in all aspects, doesn't it, really, from a work perspective to getting up in stage and talking in front of people, like all this imposter syndrome, it is about self-talk.
And it's a lot about fear as well. I know over the years people have told me that they'd rather jump into a pit full of snakes than speak in public, and I think, really? But once you get out there and you practice, is it nervous and uncomfortable? Yeah, but there's techniques to get over that as well.
Yeah.
But gee, I've even had people say to me recently, I'd rather poke myself in the eye with a pin than network. And I'm going, and that's a male saying that.
Yeah, wow.
Gee, that's fear.
Jerry Seinfeld did a really funny quote on that. He said, the number one fear in the world is public speaking. The number 2 is death. So he said, at a funeral, most people would rather be in the casket,
getting up, speaking about someone.
Eulogy, yeah. But yeah, why? Well, on that, why are people so scared of networking then? Like what?
I think it's women have said, what if I run out of things to say? And I always say, I've never heard of a woman who runs out of things to say. But I think it's walking into a room full of males and suits is like, what do I say? I say, just ask them questions, and ask them questions on what they love to talk about.
Well, what's your approach? You just walk up to people?
Yeah. But
I've
networked all my life, even when I was little.
But you can walk into a room now and command. Like, look, I know you and I know your type, and what I mean by that is you're well established, right? And you're well known, and you walk into a room and people gravitate towards you. So you don't have to try anymore.
I always think that people are gravitated to people who look like they're having fun.
Yeah.
So I always say, set an objective. What do you want to achieve? Do you want to go in and meet someone and that's interesting? Do you want to go in and have some fun? Do you want to go in and try and get a piece of business out of this? Well, whatever it is, have an objective. I always go in, I want to have fun. Even if I'm tired and I want to go home, I just think, go and have some fun.
Yeah.
And because you've got that mindset, then you naturally have fun, laugh, and people do gravitate to that. And I remember one of my members that's been with me for a very long time came in from Sydney, and it was at an SA Great function. And I was, it was towards the end, and I was laughing my head off, and she literally ran over to me and she said, "Oh my God, I want to know who you are. I want to know what you do." She said, "You look like you're having fun. I'm drawn to people who have fun." I thought,
I'll
yeah,
have
there
what
you
she's
go.
having. Yeah.
Yeah, I want what she's having. Yeah, and she's still a client of mine today.
Yeah, brilliant.
And this was, gosh, over 10 years ago.
I was taught by a mentor of mine from a networking perspective that, and it's something that stuck with me. And I actually do this everywhere I go. You know, the old family barbecue that you don't want to go to, and so I take this philosophy there as well. It's like, today I want to find out something new about someone who I've never met.
Yep, good.
Right, and that's it.
That's a great objective.
Yeah, and
that's you go into a networking function like that.
correct. Just I want to find out, and so when I take that to family functions, I just want to find out something new about that person.
Yeah.
That's all. So you can
Awesome.
it engages in conversation. It gives you a reason to ask questions. And if you remember the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, I'll never forget in that book there was the comment around you could sit there and speak to someone at a networking function for an hour. And you could speak for 5 minutes and they could speak for 55 minutes and they would walk away from that conversation thinking it was the most enlightening conversation
that's
they've ever
right.
had, because you've just sat there and listened to them the whole time. And so to your comment of there are women or people who say, "Oh, I don't know what to say," it's like actually listening is the better quality.
Ask good questions.
Ask good questions, correct.
Yeah. And they said, "Well, what sort of questions?" I said, "Well, what people love to talk about is themselves and all their organisations.
Yeah.
And as women, you can go deeper into, like I always like to ask the question, instead of what do you do, I always say, what do you do when you're not working, or what do you do when you're having fun? And it takes them out of work into usually family or friends or hobbies or something, and then the thing is to try and find as many commonalities as possible to see whether you want to stay with that person or you keep on networking.
Yeah.
And even if you really like the person, exchange cards or you LinkedIn and keep on moving, because you're not there for an hour or two just to speak to one person.
Yeah, 100%. I start the podcast, every single podcast, I start with, tell me about your context, your earliest context. So I almost use that as my thing.
Yes.
So tell a little bit about yourself. And you give them the opportunity. When you say, tell me a little bit about yourself, they respond in either two ways. I'm a father or a mother of two, or I've got this and I've got that. And you go, and in my head, I know straight away I've got a human.
Yeah.
Whereas they go, oh, I'm a CEO, or I'm a project manager, or whatever. They go into work, and I go, okay, I've got someone who's career focused, and you can kind of pick up straight away the type of, and you just mold your conversation
Or it could
around
be
that.
someone who doesn't want to talk to you personally.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I always get there. I think that's kind of my goal, is like, I'm going to find out how many kids you got. I'm going to find out, where you play, like where your kids play sport and all that sort of stuff. Like I think if you go in with that, I want to get to know you as a human, not just who you are as a in your working life.
Yeah, that's right.
I think
That's clever.
goes a lot further. Rightio. Now, you've dedicated your life to empowering women, and obviously 20 years ago you started Bottom Line, and plus 20 odd years ago you started Bottom Line and Behind Closed Doors. What inspired you to start
Well, it
those?
was that banking career where, being the only female in senior management, it's lonely at the top for everybody, but it's more lonely for women because there's fewer of us. So I didn't want other women to go through what I went through, and learn the mistakes I learned were later, 40s and 50s. I wanted women to learn those same lessons earlier with the support of other women. So I just invented Behind Closed Doors on what I missed out on in my banking career. And then after that, there was still no coaching, mentoring, investment in me from anywhere I went.
So where did
including
the
government
name Behind Closed Doors come from?
I made it up.
Yeah, just
I wanted a name that meant total confidentiality, totally. And I looked up, and this is before ChatGPT, and I looked up and Googled anything confidential, and Chatham House rules wasn't right, because anything Chatham House, because that means you could talk about what was said, but not attribute who said it. So that didn't work. And anyway, I was in the car and I was listening to the radio, and the reporter said, behind closed doors discussions were held in Canberra today. And I went, that's it.
That's it.
And then I went straight and registered the name.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that was exactly what I wanted.
And what was your ultimate vision for Behind Closed Doors when you started
I wanted
it?
to, a long time ago now, but I wanted to get at least 25% of women onto Australian boards. That was the ultimate vision. And the way I thought I'd do that is getting more women into executive roles, more entrepreneurs running their own businesses and scaling their businesses. So there was a bigger pool to draw from for board. And then by creating, this national network of women, there's a big pool there. So when men now come to me and say, I've been talking to recruiters and I need a female CFO, whatever, for this board, I say, how many do you want?
Yeah.
Because they say the recruiters told them there aren't any. And that's because they're lazy. They don't get out and meet people and whatever. So I've got, and I'm not saying all recruiters are lazy, but when they say there's no one, that's lazy. And I've got lots of recruiters, male and females, who have been amazing at supporting women, but we need a lot more. We need a lot more males supporting women, but we need a lot more organisations investing in women and investing in their professional development, as well as recruiters, not putting people in boxes and taking, there's a great network of women who, and they will not come to you. They're reticent. It's a confidence thing, I think, where they won't come and tap you on the shoulder and say, whenever you've got another board position or a promotion or whatever, I want it. They'll expect you'll tap them on the shoulder because they're doing such a great job. But as you know, they're not on a radar and they won't be tapped generally.
Because there's no one, is right?
Yeah.
But what's at 25% was your goal?
Well, we've passed that now, so we're sitting at 30. So I've
30.
lifted the goal.
But is 50% an ASX listed board?
No. It's sitting around 21 to 23%.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Still,
wow.
I mean, we get to the 30 and then we go back. We get
back
to the 32 and we go back. So we keep sitting around that 20 to 25%, get to our 30, because there's there was a lot of noise around this in the last decade. I don't hear the noise anymore. I don't hear about getting more women.
I remember 5-6 years ago, the AICD conference, it was very much around how do we get equality, and you don't hear that anymore.
No, you don't. It's yesterday's news.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because there's something else now. There's domestic violence is now the big thing. So unfortunately, we don't keep focusing on what's important and keep it. So domestic violence, I hope that stays as being one of the important things forever, not just for now.
Yeah, it's not just a
and
buzzword.
the same with getting more women into executive and CEO and board roles. We've stopped the conversation. When you stop the conversation and you stop the reporting on it, then people just don't focus on it anymore. So we can't lose these important focus areas. We've got to keep, and that's me. I haven't stopped. But
so what do we do to get that back front of mind now?
I think this, similar to what I've already said, we've got to have more males promoting and investing in females in their organisations and talking about women to others, so that and also what I'm trying to do is get women to get on radars. The power of building networks. Most of the promotions that happen onto boards or in organisations come from networks, either internal or external. So if everyone had on their position description a KPI that said networking, they'd do it. But it's not. It's never been on any of position descriptions, so they don't do it. And women will have lots of excuses of why, and they're all valid excuses, like family and kids and being an Uber driver and all of this sort of stuff, but they need to invest time, which means making time, in their schedule, whether it's during the day or not. They don't have to have their head down and bum up all day long achieving. They have to build those networks. And networks, as I said, are internal as well as external. But you have to be on people's radars because they'll forget you.
It's relationship building, isn't it, really?
That's like when I do workshops on networking, my first, and male and female, I say, I want you to rate yourself, introduce yourself to me, but I want you to also rate yourself out of 10, 0 being low and 10 being high on networking, and rate yourself 0 to 10 on relationship building. They'll go 7 or 8 on their relationship building, and they'll go 1 or -1 or 2 or something pathetic on their networking. And I say it's exactly the same at the end of when they do it, and no one's given themselves a 10 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 for networking. I go, it's the same thing.
It is.
So call it, if you don't like the word networking, call it relationship building, but go out and build relationships and maintain them. And I remember being in, after I left the bank, I went into Morgan & Bank's recruitment and headhunting. And I remember offering roles, and I don't want to be a salesperson. Or how about an account manager? I think, yeah, I'd be happy with that. Same thing. If you don't like the word sales, call it account management. Now, some of this is at risk, so it will be a retainer plus commission. No, I won't work on commission. Okay, what about a bonus? Yeah, I'll work on a bonus. You think, whatever.
Yeah, it's the same.
So it's the same stuff. It's just how you can reframe it in your own mind. But seriously, most of the people that you speak to have got onto boards will say it's because of their networks, not because of anything else.
I grew up with my old man in my ear saying, Dan, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Well, I say it's not what you know, it's who knows you.
Who knows you, 100%.
Because you can know a lot of people, but if they don't know you and you're not on their radar, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. You could know a lot of people, but you're still a dick, right? So
well, you're still invisible, and that's
correct.
why hybrid working, particularly for women, is not good. They were invisible when they were at work, and now that they're working from home most of the time, they're totally invisible. So much discussion happens around the water cooler. You know, going into the kitchens or just being in the same office. So many more side conversations that you miss out on working from home.
I have not thought of it that way. So you're almost an advocate against working from
no,
home.
I think hybrid is the majority should be at work. So what we do is we do Monday, Tuesday at home, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in the office, so that we get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. How, as a leader, like I run a business, Gabs, what would you say, be 80% female, 80 to 90%? Like we're predominantly female. Obviously, there's two sides to this coin, right? In you said about male support. How do I, as a leader of a business with that percentage of females, continue to support and promote? Is it sort of? Are you saying that I should build in KPIs for networking or relationship building? Yeah,
absolutely.
And so, but more as for what though? For what's the benefit? How do I sell that to the team?
Well, it's two things. One is they're building their profile, their personal brand, and the brand of your organisation, because they're still representing you, your organisation, but they'll build their confidence in their networks as well. But also invest in their professional development, because that's another way of networking. Yeah, and meeting people.
Yeah,
and so, but relationship building is a way of finding out information. Your organisation, all organisations rely on information, and you don't have to get it all from books and degrees and whatever. A lot of information comes from speaking to people. So if you do it as go and find out what's trending in our industry, or go and speak to people about what their biggest challenges are in business, or like different ideas. But and so they go out there and have these conversations. That's networking. Yeah, like the amount of knowledge that you get by talking to people, like you are the same as me. You ask good questions and you get amazing answers. And then it's amazing how it just stays in. And when people 100%. Start saying about anything, you can basically have conversations on anything with anyone. I always like to add value to all conversations. So if I can add value about what I've picked up to someone else, I mean, it's like a network building
100%,
exercise in itself. You know, on LinkedIn, for example, it works, you know, in these face-to-face conversations so well.
Oh, the quality of your conversation is based on the quality of your questions. There is no doubt, like that is absolute fact. I guess I want to go back to that point around a KPI around networking, right? I can just, if I'm looking into the future and I turn around and I say, right, everyone, we're putting in KPIs. I want everyone to attend networking functions or learning development functions or whatever.
So
it might
what
be.
outcome do you want? Do you want them to bring information and knowledge back to the business, or do you want them to so work out what your outcome is? Like go out networking. For what reason?
Yeah, because that would be then the response would be like, well, we're not in sales, we don't want to do but so for me, you're right. We have amazing humans in our team who are leading the way in how to go about through change in business, right? The people who I have in my team are far superior in their thinking around change than what I am, and I almost think it's a travesty that they're not out there speaking enough about it, right? Exactly. Like we had this conversation in our marketing meeting yesterday with Gabs, myself, and Kylie Butler, who's been on this podcast many a time talking about, and she does keynote after keynote. But I'm still out there telling her every single day, get out there. Like what you have to say is amazing, and people want to hear it, and people don't understand or see that perspective. But it's, you know, she might do it once or twice. There might be an odd post here or there. And I'm like, it's got to be every day.
Okay, so your KPI for her, for example, can be, I need you to do one presentation a month externally, with people, and then I want you to do one online.
Yeah, so
something like that. But that's networking, right?
Yeah.
But that's one, she's sharing information, but imagine how much she could bring back and add value to, you know, her presentation.
Yeah, and I'm just using her as one person, but I'm talking about the whole
same
team.
thing, I'd be looking at what outcome do you want out of each of them, and then, like for example, with Gab, you could say, I want you to understand more around AI and how that can work for marketing. So now go and speak to some people in that regard who are experts
in marketing.
So that's her outcome, like that. But she has to go out and find that information, not go on to ChatGPT and learn.
Yeah. So it's about how we position
work out
it.
the outcome for each person. What outcome or outcomes do you want out of them establishing relationships and networking? And some of it might be, I want 3 things that we don't already know brought back to this organisation. So that's your outcome.
Brilliant.
You know, can be anything.
It's so good.
But making sure it's adding value to your business.
Yeah. I mean, because I always, look, I'm a sales guy, right? Like my background is sales. I know how to sell. And but I've also always had the idea that sales is done by relationships, same thing. And so naturally, when I say to the team, "Come on, everyone, go out there and do," it always comes across as potentially a sales thing. Dan wants us to go out and mingle so they can bring, but it's not. It actually is always coming from the perspective of, actually, the more and more people know who you are, the more and more it raises your brand.
Absolutely.
Right? The more and more people are likely to connect with you, the benefit it has on the business, right? So there is a business benefit, but it does both. It's a win-win.
Exactly. But no one likes that hard sales person.
No.
Yeah, no one,
I
right?
agree.
But I don't go out to get business. I go out to find information and add value. And just because of that, people will say, I want more of that.
Yeah.
And so they say, so is this something that would be good for me, or whatever?
Correct.
Or
well, you're there to challenge their way of thinking.
Exactly. But also with behind closed doors as an example, behind closed doors isn't for everyone, and everyone isn't for behind closed doors. So in a way, you're interviewing people too to decide whether we're right, or maybe just one-on-one exec coaching and mentoring is right for them, or maybe it's something that we don't even offer that I can refer them on. So I'm trying to determine, are we the right fit for them, and they're the right fit for us anyway. In all.
Yeah, brilliant.
And if it's just because I want to find out information, then, to help my knowledge, for example, I will. That's my objective for going out and meeting with people. But I always find some of the best ways of networking is by doing presentations, getting on panels, or doing a keynote, and talking about an area of passion or an area that you've got great knowledge on that you can share, and people will remember. Like years and years later, will say, I always remember what you said, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what I said, 10 or 20 years ago or whatever, but they do. And then when you connect at some way, shape or form, wherever you are, and they say that's gold, and then you never know where that's going to lead. And it might not be them that becomes your client, but they will recommend you to others, and that's
100%.
gold.
Yep.
And that's the power of networking.
And the power of well-chosen words too, right? I think the amount of times I've had people come up to me and say, you said something to me 3 years ago that still sticks with me to this day, and I'm like, I don't remember us having that conversation.
No.
So,
but it must have been powerful to them, and that's wonderful.
So why do so many men hesitate in this support role? Like, I think just coming to my point
You have to ask men. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of trying to ask the question to myself, going off your point of the outcome, and I'm thinking about just the networking thing. Previously to this conversation, as of 20 minutes ago, I would have thought putting KPIs in front of people for networking was something that they didn't want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because the word networking scares them, and what you've already said, your team aren't all salespeopeople. They don't think they need to network. So call it relationship building as your KPI for whatever outcomes you want. Look, men have naturally networked internally and externally. I've always seen men in where the decision makers are. You'll see men, and I had the head of a NAB here once I became quite friendly with, and she moved to Sydney and changed banks, and I was talking to her about, how have your first 3 months gone? And she said, Donny, you always talk to me about networking and women networking, men networking better than women. She said, it's proven. She said, I've been here for 3 months. I've had every male come into my office at one point to tell me who they are, what they do, introduce themselves, whatever. Not one woman has come into my office in 3 months. Not one. So she was surprised.
Why?
Well, because women think if they put their head down and their bum up and they go like crazy and achieving and whatever, you'll notice them and you'll go to them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen. So, but men understand
but
you've got to get in front of someone.
Do female leaders see that though?
Most of the female leaders and board directors that I know who have got successful careers will say the number one difference that made them successful was their networking.
I hands down agree with that. My question is if there is a female leader, CEO of a major corp, or whoever this NAB person was it? Anyway, we won't go to who it was. Would they see the females doing the work and then approach them? No. So it's no matter the gender at the top of the tree, you still got to get out there in front of them.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a big wake up call.
Because it's not the CEO, for example.
Yeah.
It's not the CEO's role to go and see who's doing a great job.
Correct.
They've got tens of thousands of other things that they've got to think about and do. But if a male, for example, talked about a female that was doing an amazing job, that's like acting as a sponsor. That's amazing. But if males don't talk about what females are achieving or even other males are achieving in their teams, and they're taking the credit for everything that's happening, that's where it stops.
That's
life. That's business, right? So if you're not talking, if you don't have a sponsor that talks you up, then you've got to do it yourself. But males and females do it differently. Like females cringe at the thought of going and telling someone what they've done, like what they're achieving or how they're succeeding. They just cringe at it.
Why don't you?
Why don't you?
Why don't you cringe at that? Like, what makes? Like, how do you?
Oh,
how did you overcome that hurdle?
I just got in front of the right people. I presented what I did. You know, like that transformation.
But you've
project.
obviously changed. Like, if we're stereotyping here, we're saying females don't do this and men do this. How did you break the mold? Like, what?
Because I grew up a tomboy.
Yeah. Okay. So is that that can't be the answer?
Well, it was the answer. I didn't see myself any different. I've always networked. I watched the males and I thought, what are the males doing differently to the females? The big thing was networking. The second thing was letting people know what you are doing or coming up with ideas. Like I was always visionary, still am, but I always talked about what we could do and what we could achieve, and I didn't care who got the credit for it. I just wanted that objective of achieving and getting things approved and driving things. Like I'm a driver. If I don't drive things and I don't and I get bored very quickly, so I need to keep on changing. And so, but a lot of people don't like change. I get it and whatever, but I do. So because I was always in front of people with ideas and ways to improve and whatever, I got noticed.
Yeah.
But the way you do it is different to men. Men can say, I did this, and I did this, and it's fine. But women don't like doing that, and so instead of saying this is what I do or what I've done and what I've achieved, it's presenting things.
Yeah.
So I did it in a presentation style rather than this is how good I am.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
You actually had something to back it up.
And then I had to back it up.
So what's your advice then to women first in overcoming that hurdle?
Well, get on radars and don't ask for permission. When we started on that fast tracking program, there was a psychologist who came in and said, how many of you will ask for permission before you do anything? And half put up their hands and half didn't. I didn't. And then how many of you ask for forgiveness? And I put my hand up with the others. And he said, don't do either. Don't ask for permission. Don't ask for forgiveness. You think it's right. You think it's a great idea. You go and innovate it. You go and implement it. And if someone doesn't like it, even though you've proven that it's succeeded, don't ask. And anyway, so that's how I lived after that.
Brilliant.
Never ask for permission anyway, but certainly never ask for forgiveness. That's one of the lessons that I would say to males and females.
Yeah.
Do it. If you know it's good, it's going to add value.
Yeah, it has to come from the right place, though. Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
So is the answer to women getting out there more is as simple as suck it up, you've got to do it if you want to get noticed and move up or
don't, but don't sit back and complain when no one's touching you for promotions and pay rises.
So the world is your oyster, right?
Well, that's right. When people talk about glass ceilings, I just think, oh, God, not again, because I don't believe in them. I think you put your own barriers on. So if you're going to wait for someone to come and, present you with something and, sometimes that happens and I always say, give it a big tick because it's not the way business is usually done.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
So you chase the opportunities, create the opportunities, seize the opportunities. And for God's sake, when people offer you a promotion, don't say, I'm not ready for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. You don't
say
have
yes
to
and figure out how to.
You don't have to have 10 out of 10 to be able to do a job. Learn on the job.
Yeah.
But say yes to every single opportunity. And if they don't come, create them.
Yeah.
That's what I did all my life.
I love it. I mean, it just comes back to the same thing. Like this, I always put sport and business together as such of a likeness because my kids are basketballers. To use that analogy, to get court time, you got to prove yourself. Right, you got to put in the hours. You got to go out there and show and be a little bit flamboyant. You got to have the right behaviours, have the right mindset. It's the same thing.
It's exactly the same.
You don't get on the court if you're sitting back and waiting for the coach just to pick you. Like it just doesn't work.
And if you don't train hard, if you don't work hard, as you say, have the right mindset, team Work
Team
in the team. It's not about you.
Correct.
Work with the team. There's so many synergies, and this is why coaching and mentoring is so important. How many of any teams playing sport do you know that don't have a coach or more?
Zero.
Look at footy
Like,
teams.
it's a zero.
They have, I don't know how many teams,
Yeah.
performance coach,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
a frontline coach, a midline coach, coaches everywhere.
Yeah.
And yet we think we can go through business without a coach or a mentor. Get real.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need, but we never had them. When I was coming up
And-
through the ranks, we didn't have
And
them.
I'll add something to that. We think we can go through business not only without a mentor, but without a scoreboard.
Yeah, true.
Because you got to know where you're going. You got to know what your target is. You got to know if you're actually winning the game or not.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think looking up and seeing the score and going, actually, we're on track or we're not. So you got to have some goals and visions. Do we want to win the championship or do we just want to finish last? If we want to win the championship, we need to do this, and then are we on track? There's got to be some sort of scorecard there as well that you hold yourself accountable to.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it. So what about as a father? You're talking about men supporting. So I'm a father of two girls, 13 and 11. I don't have the son. I know the son conversation is just as important. But what are conversations that men can have as fathers?
I think it's, respect is a big one. But I think the way I was brought up was you can do anything. It doesn't matter that you're a female. Doesn't matter you're a male. You can do anything. You set your mind to, and you'll support them. You and your wife will support them in whatever choices they make. That's a big conversation to have at this age, probably.
Yeah.
Because in school now they're taught that they can do anything.
Yeah.
And as soon as they hit the workforce, they're told they can't do anything. So I think it's when men say some terrible things about women when they're not in the room, about, well, they might go and have a baby, so we won't promote them into partnership, or whatever the conversations are. And then I'll say to them, so do you have daughters? And they go, yeah, I've got one daughter or a couple of daughters or whatever. And I say, so if you had men sitting around a table saying the same things about your daughters, how would you feel? So then that sort of, oh, yeah, I want my daughters to have everything. I want my daughters to have the same opportunities I had. And I said, well, why aren't you giving the same opportunities to your females, right? So, yeah, I just think it's whatever they choose to do, you will support them, but make sure that they have male mentors as well as female mentors, because males will come from a problem or a solution very differently to the way females are. So it's really good to have a mix of males and females in their life.
Yeah. I look, as for me, the one thing that irritates me more than anything else, and I come from an Italian background, right? Is this female in the kitchen attitude.
Yeah.
And I've had a family circumstance where I've stomped that out. My daughters were sitting at the table listening to someone, I won't say who, but listening to someone questioning why they weren't in the kitchen. And I stood up there and then and said, if that's the chat that's going on here, then we're not welcome.
Yep, correct.
In this family.
And that's the thing. Call it when it happens.
What's the standard you walk past?
Correct. But particularly for males, if males call it, then other males will listen. If a woman calls it a girl, there she goes again.
Yeah.
Putting her woman thing on, or call you a feminist or whatever, rather than going, no, this is inappropriate. But a male calling it out is so powerful.
Well, I just won't stand for it, because I just remember the looks on their faces going, what do you mean? Like, we can't, because in the Italian tradition, this I hate to say it, but this is just the way it's happened in my whole life, is that after dinner, the females get up and go into the kitchen and clean up, and the men sit around and
having a good time.
Like, it's just been that way.
The way that a lot of my friends do it is, if I'm cooking, you're cleaning.
Yeah.
And the vice versa. If they cook something, then the female. So that's sharing.
Correct. Well, that's what happens in my household. Like, my wife and I cook together and we clean together.
Yeah,
like,
cool.
for us, it's just the same. But when you go to the big family functions,
it changes.
And you still got some old school, like the old school way of living is still evident.
Yeah, my husband and I always had a laugh where we would go into someone's home or a barbie or whatever it was, And all the males would be
Yeah.
one section, all the females would be, and we would always gravitate the opposite. So
Yeah.
I would always go and speak to the males, and my husband would always go and speak to the females. And they loved him,
Yeah.
but he preferred their conversation to the male conversation.
Yeah.
It was really, we always laughed about it because we just naturally gravitated to that. And then, you know, towards the middle and end of the evening, everyone comes together.
Yeah.
But it's funny that that's how it all starts.
Yeah.
And yet David and I always...
What's it called? The Great Australian Barbecue, isn't it? Is that what
Yeah, but we always gravitated differently. And it, it was fun.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to go back to behind closed doors before we jump onto the next part. But I think for me, it'd be really interesting to hear a story of how behind closed doors and the power of networking and putting oneself out there or building relationships has really helped some of your people with their careers. I'd love to hear like one story that sticks to your mind just to show the benefit of what this does in getting out there and putting yourself out there.
Look, because women I know don't like the networking or they won't invest the time, by putting them in a room with other women from different industry sectors is networking. They don't realise it, but it's networking. It's pulling them together on a monthly or quarterly basis with the same group of women to get to know each other. This thing at Millicent, that turned in from a day trip to, you know, a 3-day trip, what we were talking about earlier for one of our groups, because they really get on well. You know, there's another group that they're organising to go away for a week together or 3 days together. So I've got members from 2009-10 who still get together and go away, and they're not together as a group anymore. But they've formed such amazing friendships. And women who get what it's like to be in business. Yeah. So there's lots of commonality and lots of friendships that occur. So they didn't realise they were networking at the time, but they are. And another way we do it is we have our networking sessions during the year, which is only women, so they feel safer, and then that helps them build up the confidence to do more networking with males as well. And then there are they can go into guest speaker sessions with other groups for the first hour, for example. So they get to meet other women in other categories and other groups. They don't realise it's networking. It's my way of getting them to network without them realising that's what I'm doing. And then it's later they say, and particularly our entrepreneurs who say the biggest benefit they get out of behind closed doors is the networks they've established. And I go, there you go. There you go. Yeah. So I can't give you one example because there's many examples of, and these are professional friendships that have turned into real friendships for life that they would never have met these people hadn't I had something like behind closed doors for them.
Which is so good. So the behind closed doors is female only.
So bottom line is male or mixed gender.
Yep. Okay.
And so we've got the same, like a directors network, and from February we're starting an entrepreneurs group for male and female. So when males started coming to me this year saying, why don't you do for us what you do for women? And I say, okay, I will, but do you want an all-male group or do you want a male and female? And they said, well, we've got females in our organisation. We deal with female customers. Why wouldn't we have both? And I go, yeah, I'm just asking. So, there's nothing appealing about an all-male. An all-male, no. Even for me. Like, no, it's interesting. Why would I want that? And they don't. So it's great. So in February we start our male-female group. Yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I have a lot, just by way of this podcast, I have a lot of male mentors in my life, like the old school Rolodex that I've got on my phone, and you're no different. Like in connections, the ability to pick up the phone and be able to pick someone's brain is. I'm very lucky and honoured to be able to have that privilege. But yeah, I don't want to be in a room full of men. I want to be in a room full of diverse thinking. That's what I want to be. Correct. Yeah. Correct. In a world where we feel like this is starting to move in the right direction, right? Like, we're at 25-30% on boards. We're starting to see that it's still a long way, right? Equality is still quite far away. Does it
does it frustrate you that it's as slow as it is? I mean, you've been doing this for 20 years and it still hasn't even got anywhere near that 50% mark yet.
So about 25 years ago, I was doing a presentation and there are a lot of women in the room. And one of them asked me, do you think we'll be having this same conversation around equality and equal opportunity and not enough women in executive, not enough women on boards in 20 years' time? I said, oh, God, no. No, things will change. And here we are, 25 years later, having the same conversation. It's boring. And that's why Behind Closed Doors and other organisations like mine are so important to try and break through these barriers. But I just don't think we'll get equality. So why don't we just go for equal opportunity? Like if there's a job or a board position, don't just go and tap your mates on the shoulder. Open it up and demand, particularly from a recruitment perspective, demand that there are equal number of women on the shortlist as men. So when I get men saying there aren't any women or no women applied, I always go, try harder. Like, go and tap women on the shoulder then, because they're not likely to apply because the way you've written your ad, for example, might be very male dominated in its language. So it wouldn't appeal to a female. So maybe look at the way you doing your whole recruitment process, and then if you're using a recruiter and they say there aren't any females, just say, well, try harder because I'm not paying for it unless I get equal. And then obviously the males and the females then have to win the job at interview. Yeah. So that's where it stopped, but allow the equal opportunity to happen. And I remember I was asked this question on a panel, and it was when I was on the ABC board, and the recruitment process to put a female, to put a new chair of the ABC forward, and it came back that there only 3 males were put to the Prime Minister. And I was asked this question about what did I think about that, and I said that they're lazy and they should try harder. And anyway, the long story short of that is the Prime Minister did reject the 3 males and then tapped Ida Buttrose on the shoulder. Nice. And she became the chair. But yeah, try harder.
So I want to go back to the comment that you at the start of this podcast where you said, I grew up in a world where there was no male or female, right? Like it was equal opportunity, hence being tomboy and all the above. And so for me, my attitude is quite similar. I don't really see the divide in the sense that I couldn't care less whether you're male or female. I just want someone who's actually really excellent at the job and an innovative thinker and someone that can help me realize the vision that I'm trying to set out for this business, so to speak. When I'm talking from a corporate perspective, but even in life, it's the same. I don't care for gender. I care for the quality of conversation that I'm going to have with you, and I know that the Gen Zs coming through and all this that into the workforce are going to stand for the same. They're not going to put up with this. This type of inequality, they're going to really speak out about it on all things social media, and I'm really interested in your thoughts around what the future workforce looks like. You know, when you talk about, because 25 years ago when you started this, those same men are still potentially in the industry over that 25 years, but in another 25 years they won't be.
It's probably the earlier question that you asked about you're a father, with 2 daughters, what conversation do you have? And I'd say that, well, if you've got a misogynistic father talking to their son and daughters about what women and men should be doing, like one's a matriarch and one's successful in business, and that's what they grow up believing, then the world's not going to change. But you grow up with, and this Gen Z, most of them have parents who work. They've, when I grew up, one worked, one didn't. Yep. Now they're growing up with their mums and dads if they've been together, they have had careers.
Yeah.
So they've got a very different outlook on life. But if you, as I said, if you've got a misogynistic father who's saying that this is the role for women and this is the role for men, then you're going to have the same problem in the workforce. And I know that today that still happens.
Yeah. Those people, I said this on the last podcast actually. There's a guy at the basketball club who is still speaking with that language. Young guy, 35, 40 years old, and his views on women is inappropriate, right? To the point where a lot of us do not want to speak to him, or like, I don't understand how anyone can still think that and then not have the emotional intelligence to realize that shit, no one wants to hear this crap anymore. No one wants to.
Did you hear the latest who became president of the United States?
Well, that was going to be one of my questions. I can't.
Don't ask me.
No,
seriously, don't ask me. But that these people are growing up thinking that that's okay if the president of the United States elect can speak like this and treat women like that, then it's okay for me. That's your role model. What hope have we got?
We were set back with him getting in office, weren't we?
Well, you wait. The proof in the pudding will be not in the 4 years of his reign, it will be in the 20 years afterwards.
Yeah, geopolitics aside, from a gender and equality perspective,
America doesn't want a female president, and looks like Australia doesn't either. Look at the way we treated our first female Prime Minister. It was disgusting. Whether you agree with her politics or not, and she was, in a hung parliament, the only Prime Minister that's ever got through the amount of legislation she got through, and look what happened to her. So, the world, we call ourselves, progressive in America and the UK and Australia, for example, and yet the third world countries do it better the way they treat their women in politics. Go figure.
Why don't Australians want or Americans?
I don't know. You have to ask them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a deeper conversation, isn't it?
Yes.
I want to shift gears slightly. You're a seasoned board veteran. You've been on many a board and added value to many a company. I'm keen to get your unique perspective on how organisations need to remain relevant with the way in which the future's going. And I guess from your perspective, what are the most significant mega trends do you talk about at board level? What's coming our way, and how should businesses prepare for them?
Oh, look, AI is going to hit you in the face. It's been around since the 50s. People think it's all new now because of ChatGPT, but it's been around for, as I said, since the 50s. I think that the speed of AI is going to knock people over. There are disruptors out there they only have one thing in common, and that is to make sure that they do away with all people jobs. So the big thing is how do you innovate and create efficiencies using AI, and then upskill yourself and upskill your workforce that they can spend more time doing other things and usually getting in front of customers. Because robots in front of a customer. I mean, having a robot at home cooking your meal and cleaning up and whatever, that's all fine. But do you want to sit opposite a robot as a customer? No. So I think we'll become more and more people-oriented than ever before, because we won't be doing the tasks because AI will do that, all that boring admin and whatever. But we have to upskill in many different areas.
Customer service is...
Well, anything customer, right? Getting in front of customers in some way, shape or form. But this Z generation that only knows devices and speaking on devices and whatever, they're gonna find it tough because they've lost their social skills. They're always buried in a device rather than talking. I don't know if you go to restaurants, but you sit and you've got couples who are on their phones and then they're showing each other their phone and coming back and they're not talking. It's just bizarre. Yeah. And that's not just young people either. I've seen older people do it. the speed of AI and what it's going to do to change the way we know things. Like your daughters will be going into an AI world of work. They will not be going into a world that we live in
Yeah,
now.
correct. I'm trying to teach them everything they can learn about AI.
Yeah,
how to
anything
use it.
digital,
Yeah.
but AI, I mean, the speed of the uptake of AI is 10 times anything else that's been introduced.
What are you saying at board level? What are you suggesting, or what strategies can companies?
I think you have to upskill. Like there's a lot of board directors who are scared of AI.
Yeah.
And there's no need to be scared. We're using AI. If they use GPS or they use their phones, they're using AI. The cameras,
Yeah.
they're using AI. They just don't realise it.
What do you do for people who don't, like, the old saying, can't teach an old dog new tricks? Like these sort of people, how can you
Well, you can though. That's just a ridiculous saying.
how are you managing these people?
You have to get education. You have to talk to people, and like there's not a lot of experts in AI. They're there, but there's not a lot of them.
No, it's just people trying to figure it out.
You have to don't go do micro credentials. You don't have to go and do a degree.
Yeah.
Just upskill. Like cybersecurity is the biggest risk in business today. It doesn't matter if you're a one-person business or a multi-million business. You have to be understanding that cyber, and so understand cyber.
Yeah.
Understand what it means. Like you have to understand information, data, safety.
Yeah.
You have to understand all of that, because if you don't, you could lose everything, and including your reputation. So there's so many responsibilities on directors today. It's not funny. And if you're in finance, oh my God, the regulators are just quite rightly so tough on financial. The Royal Commission, all of that came. We were doing a whole lot wrong. So we have to just upskill continuously. And don't even worry about trends. I mean, that should be part of what you do as a director. Trends in industry globally, but it's more around those key risks of cyber and data security and information security that it doesn't matter what the board is, you have to be on top of.
I think I love where you're going with that upskill, and what you're saying is essentially there is just a wave after wave of change.
Correct.
Coming.
Yeah. And I think change is inevitable. It is with us every single day. It's the speed of change that is going to knock people over.
Correct. So therefore, the upskilling is absolutely
critical,
paramount. There was a, as you know, SynergyIQ, the business I run and operate, is a change organisation. We specialise in helping organisers through change. So we're really interested in this topic. And there was a survey done recently, and I've quoted this survey numerous times, but I'm going to quote it again to you because I think you'd be interested in it, which was, it was of 1,087 board members who had just fired their CEO. So a very specific survey. And the one question they asked these board members, this was ASX listed Fortune 500 companies, so bigger companies, why did you fire the CEO? That was the only question they asked. And the number one result at 31% was mismanagement of change.
Oh.
And the number two result at 29% was inaction, which is essentially sticking your head in the ground and hoping it goes away, which means mismanagement of change. Yeah. So 60% said that they fired the CEO of essentially the mismanagement of change. For us, that is that's scary but true. We see it time and time again. There are organisations after organisations embarking on change without being able to help their people make sense of change, and they do not have the capability to lead people through change.
Find someone who can.
What will come to us because we can help you. But what is your thought as sitting on boards when you're sitting with CEOs and leadership teams? What is your push on and your thought process on upskilling and teaching people how to actually lead through change and building the right conditions for success?
Yeah, my first mantra is if you can't change the people, change the people. The second one is you need a driver up the top. And so once again, I've lobbied a number of times to change the CEO if the CEO won't accept change.
Yeah.
And it's always education. If you don't get the buy-in from any of your team members, they are not going to accept the change. You have to get the buy-in. And then once you've got the buy-in, and I always like to have champions in organisations who will champion at all levels. They don't always choose my champions at the top, because a lot of them are all the way through the organisation. When they've got that buy-in and they're driving it, you become then a driver with a lot of other drivers. It's much easier on you. But the education is critical. When you're implementing change, make sure everyone is comfortable. And the only way they can get comfortable is by training them and educating them.
Yeah. Yeah, we spend a lot of time in the world of sense making. We believe the only way you can actually get people, you said earlier, people don't like change, and we believe the only way you can actually get people from this awareness of that they need to change to the desire to change is help them make sense of the change, right? And leaders need to be equipped with that skill set to be able to help their people they need to make themselves first and foremost. They need to be able to make sense of the change, and secondly, they need to help their people make sense of the change.
Absolutely.
So there is there's a lot of research that we've put into that and helping businesses. But from my perspective, I'm really interested in your thoughts around why. You said I've lobbied for CEOs to remove CEOs who aren't interested in that. How do CEOs even get into a role these days if they're not thinking about change? That's the part that confuses me the most.
Because they've got other skill sets that are, they might say all the right things in interviews, but it's demonstration, isn't it? But, they've got other skills and backgrounds that would be interesting to a board. And it's only when they're in the job that you can see whether they, their experience and how well they performed at interview actually come to fruition.
Yeah.
Hence why probations are always good these days, because you can have if they're not performing at 6 months, they're not going to get better after that. Your first 6 months are where everyone shows how good they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, in yesteryear, I don't know if CEOs needed to have the same sort of broad general skill sets that they do need to have today. I mean, there's so much on business leaders today than there used to be, a lot more responsibilities as well. So I think you just need those really good all-rounded general management type skill sets as your CEOs.
I agree. I'm conscious of your time, so we're going to just go into a couple of reflection questions before we get onto some quick-fire questions.
Sure.
If you had to have a candid conversation with your younger self about navigating success and failure, what's one thing that you would expect yourself to say?
So I don't believe in failure. I think the only way that anyone fails is when they give up. So then I just focus on success.
Right.
And so just keep never give up. Always keep trying, and don't do it the same way to get the same result. Like, try different things, engage mentors and coaches, grab a sponsor internally and externally, and never let anyone take away your confidence.
They have no right to.
No, but a lot of people, that's what happens. They beat people down so much that in the end they lose their confidence, and usually their health suffers. And I just think that's the worst thing you can allow someone to do.
Well, you're a footy fan. You might not like this guy, but Nathan Buckley said, I remember I read it in, I think it was his book I read it in, which was the two hardest things in life is, the first thing is to start, and the second thing is to not give up.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And I thought it was just so profound that, like, it is actually the journey that we should enjoy.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, that's good.
If you had to encapsulate your journey in one single lesson or message, what would that be?
One single lesson.
Your journey, your career to date.
And just back yourself. Yeah, back yourself. That would probably be it.
Rightio. I love that. Quick fire questions. What's one book or books that you've given as a gift, or you read or recommended the most? What's one?
It's 100 World's Greatest Speeches.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Very good.
And why I like it is because public speaking is a great skill all leaders need to have.
absolutely.
And so you can learn public speaking and you can get very good at public speaking. And public speaking really is all about telling stories, just like your podcast.
Which is great. See, the thing is, I can do this podcast, no problems. Getting up on stage, I shit myself.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I know. It's really, really strange. Is that on audiobook or is that is it the...
I think there's audio as well.
Of all the actual speeches that have been captured?
It's the 100 best
Speeches
in the world.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I love it. What's one lesson that's taking you the longest to learn?
To make time to reflect, rest, and reset.
Oh, I hear you. We're filming this. When are we? What is it? November. I'm crawling to that finish.
You can do little mini reflections
Yeah.
and resting and resetting, but we just run all day long. And when you learn to reflect, reset, it's amazing the difference it can make.
So you've learnt that now?
I've learned it now, but gee, it took a while.
Yeah. Do you stop and think?
Well, my husband used to always say, so when do you ever think? When's your thinking time? You just go like a battery. And I go laughingly, in the toilet, in the shower. And then I found out a few years ago that the 5 places where people do most of their thinking is in the toilet, in the shower.
Yeah.
You know, when you get some alone time. When you're travelling, whether it's on a train or in a car, it doesn't matter when you're travelling. When you're resting, not asleep, but when you're resting, and when you're on holiday. And I thought, that's when I do it. But now I do these mini ones, like in between meetings. There's a great book called The Third Space. That's another great book other than the hundreds. And that teaches you, and in a really humorous way, of this rest, reflection, resting.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's great.
I'll get onto that.
Yeah.
I need to get onto that. What's some of the best advice you've ever received?
I've got a few.
Go.
So don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, nice.
It's not personal. I might say that to every single person I coach, hundreds of people. Do what you love and love what you do. Don't wear your heart on your sleeve. Learn to have a poker face.
Yeah.
Ask good questions, which we've talked about today.
Absolutely.
And be kind.
Yeah. Yeah. My billboard would say humankind, be both. And did you, that's one of my questions that I'm asking you in a sec. Whoops, I've just jumped to that. The billboard. But it's not personal. Can I just touch on that for a sec? Sure. How do you not take things personally?
As soon as you take things personally, it becomes your problem. So whoever is yelling at you or giving you a hard time has a problem. Don't make it yours. So it might be that they've got some other stuff going on in their personal life, or they've just been berated by a customer or a boss higher than them, or whatever it is. But as soon as you take it personally because of the way they're behaving towards you, then it's your problem. So I always go, it's not my problem. And when I do that, when I say that, even to my team, I go, well, that's not my problem. And they think that's really tough and really hard. And I think, well, it's not my problem. So it's your problem. You deal with it. If you want some guidance and some help and whatever, I'll give it. But I'm not taking it on as my problem. And
is that deflective in its own right, like?
Well, not like as I've said, there are people who just want to make your life a misery.
Yeah.
And they will hammer you and pick on the smallest of things. They've got a problem.
Yeah.
Don't make it yours.
Yeah.
So I don't ever take things personally. But I always, if someone's yelling at me, or in the past, I don't get it now, but in the past, I'll just say, I'll come back when you're calmer. And they go, what? I am not. Clearly something's wrong. What's happening here?
Yeah.
But I will speak with you. But if you're yelling at me, I will come back when you're calmer.
Not in this state.
And it's amazing how it deflates.
Yeah.
Or if they can't calm down, then I'll just come back later.
Yeah. So these are supposed to be quick fire, but
Okay.
no. But this is my fault. I'm the one asking follow-up questions. How has failure? I know you don't believe in failure, but how has failure, apparent failure, set you up for success in life?
When I first started my business behind closed doors, I had gone national, but I'd only been national for a couple of years, so I hadn't built up a real brand or a real customer base interstate, but I had here, and I wanted to run this like a female summit over 2 days, and the break-even point was 200 people, and I only got 50 registrations. Oh. The long story short of that was I lost $70,000, and it was just the most horrendously stressful time. But it made me realise that you've got to walk before you can run, and so everything I did after that, I made sure that I didn't go out too early. But it was a tough lesson. 70,000.
That hurts.
That really hurt. That's my pocket. That hurt.
Absolutely.
But anyway, it's
that's huge.
Better.
One step at a time. What's one skill or talent you wish you had but you don't?
That would be computer science.
Yeah.
I'd love to be an expert in anything digital and AI.
Yeah, how to write code and...
Yeah. Oh, well, GPT and other AI can write code for you, so you don't need to learn code, but like to understand all that world, I'd love it. Yeah.
I want to create a game. Like, that's my thing, I reckon. On that, like... How cool would it be? Now that ChatGPT can code, it's like, oh, why don't I just create a game, an app or something?
Get ChatGPT.
Yeah, I might do that. If you could swap lives with anyone for a day, who would it be?
It would be the Prime Minister.
Albanese?
Well, I'm not going to name names, but a Prime Minister.
A Prime Minister.
Right? And I'd bring in legislation for women to even up the pay gap and therefore improve their superannuation. And I'd change that they weren't limited to how much they could put into their super, because when they come back into the workforce, they're so far behind. It's not funny if they've had a family, and the current limit is $27,500 a year. Forgive me, like if women didn't have a limit and they could just sock money into their super, why wouldn't you? It doesn't cost the government a cent.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I do in that day.
Legislation changes in a day. If you had a billboard that you could have anything, anywhere with anything written on it, what would it say and why?
Don't ask, don't get.
Yes.
I say that to so many people. If you don't ask for the pay rise, you won't get it. If you don't ask for the promotion, you won't get it. Don't ask for a position, you won't get it. And then and even in business, when people have a fee structure and I say, put your fees up, and they go, well, I can't. Well, you can, you choose not to. So if you don't ask, you don't get.
I love it. If you were to start a podcast, you've already got one. I can't really ask you.
That's right.
Let's just give your podcast a plug.
It's called Women on the Move.
Women on the Move. Women on the Move. Brilliant. And it can be found on all Spotify and Apple and everywhere?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. If you could be famous for one thing, what would it be?
Empowering women to achieve greater things with the in their life and in their career with the help of other women. And there's a famous quote by Madeleine Albright that said, when she said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
If you could travel to any event in history, what would it be?
Oh, the Roaring '20s.
Ah.
Yeah. Because of the music and the dance and the fashion.
Get your hippie on.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you would do if you became invisible?
Sit in on parliamentary cabinet meetings.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, you love your politics, don't you?
Yeah.
If you could have one superhero power, what would it be?
That would be the capability to defy gravity and soar through the air.
Yeah, to fly.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah.
I'm scared of heights though, so...
Oh, really? Oh. Well, you don't have... You can do that little low gravity.
Well, no. Well, I figured if you could fly, you're no longer scared of heights, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Because, like, the fear is probably more falling and dying. But anyway, all right. So my favourite joke of the whole podcast... my favourite question of the whole podcast is, what's your best dad, mum shit joke?
So, Dad, can you explain the eclipse? And Dad says, no, son.
I love it. I haven't heard that one before. That's brilliant. Very good. Thank you very mumuch for your time.
You're welcome. It was good fun.
It's been amazing. I just want to say thank you for all that you're doing and all that you've done. You're obviously having a massive influence on so many people, so many women, and people in general in this world. I know Michelle, my business partner, is part of Behind Closed Doors and absolutely loving what you guys are offering there. I just think I'm really keen to continue watching your journey, and now that you're in my little network, I'm never going to let you go. You're in my Rolodex now. So, no, I appreciate it.
What's a Rolodex?
It's remember those old, you know what a Rolodex is. There's a lot of people that probably don't. Someone said it to me the other day. They go, "Oh, your Rolodex." I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to use that."
Yeah.
It's those old one of those things.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I can't even.
No one sells them anymore.
My grandma used to have one next to her phone.
I used to have one.
Yeah.
Like right up, even in the bank.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, even in government. I had a Rolodex.
My grandma had one on the side of it, and we used to put write random numbers and names.
Oh,
in there,
really?
and she used to yell at us because she used to.
That's nasty.
Couldn't figure out who was who. Anyway, thanks again. It's been an amazing conversation. Where can we get in contact with you? Should we need?
Absolutely.
Where can people get in contact with you? Follow you?
Either through on our website. It's got all our phone numbers, mobiles, and behindcloseddoors.com.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Follow them. They're doing amazing things. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Catch you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the podcast all. You can check out the show notes if there was anything of interest to you and find out more about us at SynergyIQ.com.au. I am going to ask, though, if you did like the podcast, it would absolutely mean the world to me if you could subscribe, rate, and review. And if you didn't like it, that's all right too. There's no need to do anything. Take care, guys. All the best.